Hi friends, and welcome to Crimes with Cole. So hello. How are you guys doing today? I hope you all are having an amazing day. In today's case, we will be talking about the fatal honeymoon none of us ever want to experience, and yet one lovely woman did. She married the man she wanted to spend forever with, and when she needed him most, he wasn't there. Many would question his love for her. Today, we will be talking about the newlyweds Tina and Gabe Watson. Tina Watson was born in Germany and moved over to the U.S. when she was a couple years old. She grew up in Alabama with her mother and father. When she started attending the University of Alabama, this is when she met Gabe, and the two had began dating in January of 2001. Tina's parents didn't like Gabe from the beginning, and Tina knew that, but didn't care because she was in love. She knew Gabe was the one for her, despite all of the red flags her parents could see that she couldn't. Tina was very sheltered as a child growing up. So meeting this man and going off to live the adult life with him, it was new and exciting to Tina. And while her parents tried to, reel her in, Tina would use Gabe as an excuse so she could do what she wanted to do. Like if her parents said, oh, we're going to go to supper for, your aunt's birthday, Tina would say, oh, I can't because me and Gabe already have plans and whatever, It's like saying no for the first time in your life. It's that moment you realize you're an adult and can say no. When you break off from your parents and really start making decisions for yourself that will make you and only you happy, and your only concerns are you. Gabe had told Tina that he wanted to go to Australia for her graduation present, but the two shortly thereafter got engaged, and Tina said, why don't we just make it into our honeymoon? Now, Tina had earned her diving certificate just before the two's wedding. She began in January of 2003, so she had been diving for not even 10 months. And Gabe was actually a rescue diver. So he was, rather experienced compared to Tina, and had completed about 55 dives by the time the two had gotten married. And Tina had only completed like 5 to 10. The wedding and the days leading up to the wedding were filled with high, uneasy energy. But the couple married on October 13th, 2003. Gabe's family was happy for him and Tina. They really liked Tina, but Tina's parents still did not care for Gabe. There was something about him, and they weren't letting go of that feeling. The couple said I do, and before you knew it, they were on a flight to Australia for 2 weeks to enjoy all of what the beautiful country has to offer. They were very eager to dive in the beautiful reefs that the country had to offer, to dive a popular yet difficult wreck of SS Yongala, a passenger ship that had sank in 1911. Now, this ship is out in the ocean, which Gabe is not that experienced with, even though he had been on plenty of rescue dives before. And Tina has never been in open ocean, nor has she ever been beneath 9 meters. The company that took the divers out to this ship site, like many, if not all companies that offer dives, had offered an orientation or like a short class to further your knowledge, and also offered a dive with a master diver. But the couple refused. Everyone loaded the boat on October 22nd, 2003 to head out to the infamous SS Yongala. The SS Yongala is marked with a buoy, and when the boat that is taking you out to the ship site to dive. Once you're there, they will let down like an anchor line that, the divers can hold on to, get down to whatever depth they prefer and swim around. And then, they can use it to go back up to the boat if they wanted to as well. Gabe would claim that Tina was excited, that they were both excited, and that this should have been an easy dive. It's their honeymoon. Why would it be difficult? On the way out to the SS Yongala, the crew noticed the strong underwater current and labeled it as a red dive, meaning only advanced divers should dive. But that did not stop Gabe and Tina. Now, the plan was to, once they were out there, to use the anchor line from the boat, swim down, and then swim across the top of the wreck ship, and then grab a hold of the second anchor line, and then head back up to the boat. That was the plan. But what happened was far from what they were expecting. The couple geared up, and they got into the water. They traveled down the anchor line about 45 feet. When they went to let go, the currents were a lot stronger than they had thought, and it was sucking Tina down, or so Gabe claims. He says that they both realized the current was so strong, and so they were going to swim back to the anchor line that they had just let go of. Gabe says he grabbed Tina and tried to swim, but couldn't make much progress. And when he turned back around to look at Tina, he felt a whack across his face, knocking his face mask off. And naturally, anybody, I don't care who you are, you're going to grab your face mask, you're going to affix it, adjust it, and do what you got to do. That's what Gabe had done. But naturally, in the process of that, he let go of Tina. And as soon as he brought his hands down from his face, Tina had sunk 10 feet beneath Gabe. She was face up and being sucked down and had her arms up, and was reaching out for her husband to come save her. Gabe claims that he took a few strokes and kicks to see if maybe, just maybe, he could reach Tina, but decided to turn around and go get help because he felt there was nothing he could do to help her. A rescue diver, and there was nothing he could do to help his wife. Once Gabe had returned to the boat, he yelled for help, and a master diver dove down to grab Tina. They brought her back up to a second boat. Gabe was not on that second boat, and they performed CPR for 40 minutes on her, trying everything they could to get her to come back. And while Gabe sat on the other boat, those fellow divers that had gone on the excursion with them comforted him, letting him know hopefully all will be okay. How you would just leave your dying wife on another boat? Gabe claims that he just can't stand seeing loved ones in that type of condition. It was too hard for him. That is why he refused to go to the second boat. Now, after those 40 minutes, John Downey, who is a doctor and also just so happened to be on this dive excursion that day, told Gabe that Tina was gone. When they came back to land, the police questioned Gabe alongside all the other passengers, and Gabe's story just didn't add up. They compared these stories with the data that was in the dive computers. The dive computers are like small watch-sized computers that give you information like how much oxygen you have or how deep you are, and a lot more stuff that is beneficial for divers to know when they're diving. But it's essentially like a smart watch for diving specifically. As they brought on these diving medical experts, it was no doubt that Tina had many variables working against her. I mean, she isn't experienced. She is swimming a red dive. She's in the ocean, which she has never dived in before. She didn't take the orientation. All of her equipment was an extra 20 pounds. I mean, when you take a step back and you look at all of these variables, you'd almost ask yourself, well, why would she even go diving out there? The experts also went on to say that Tina was doing fine the first 4 minutes of her dive. She dove down, 30 feet along the anchor line, but the moment she let go of the anchor line in her 5th minute, this is when she started sinking. It rotated her body and started making her swim vertically instead of horizontally, which takes a lot more effort. So she was swimming against a current and had all of this extra weight on her from her equipment, resulting in her only getting halfway back to the anchor line and becoming extremely exhausted. She started panicking, which makes her overbreathe and then aspirate water through her mouthpiece and losing consciousness, ultimately sinking to the bottom of the ocean floor. The autopsy showed that she had drowned, which is the cause of death in about 70% of diving deaths. But the question of if Gabe had anything to do with it was still lingering. Gabe had given 16 different versions of what happened while they were down there. First, he would say that, she knocked off his mask, and then he would say, his dive computer was messing up and he had to go back up to the boat to fix it, which would mean that Tina was left alone and then anything could have happened. How would he have known? But then he would change it again, making some other reason, making the death ultimately look accidental. But was it? Many of the fellow passengers on that boat said Gabe was acting strange. He certainly wasn't acting like he cared about his wife that had just died. Gabe's actions of not saving Tina in the water, yet he's a certified diver. How did he not see any of the red flags that she was presenting? He's a certified diver. He has had training to deal with people in diving situations who are stressed, who are panicking and, waving their arms around and their legs and flailing and freaking out. He is trained to know how to deal with those types of people in certain, in situations. And yet he just left Tina there sinking to the ocean floor because he felt there wasn't much he could do. The police believed that Gabe had hugged his wife, turned off her oxygen, suffocating her, and then turned it back on while, she was sinking to the ocean floor. And then he swam up to get help. Gabe's mother had flown to Australia that next day and said Gabe was like a walking zombie. I mean, he didn't eat, he didn't sleep, he didn't talk, he just was there. And he was in such shock over this matter that he just couldn't take it all in. After a few weeks, Gabe and his mom, alongside Tina's body, had returned to the United States and they had a funeral back home for Tina. After Tina had been buried, Gabe had moved her body to a bigger plot, causing an uneasy feeling to Tina's mom and dad. As her mom and dad would place flowers on this new grave, Gabe just couldn't help but always throw them off. Tina's mom and dad went as far as to chain these flowers to her grave. Gabe took some bolt cutters and cut the chains off and threw the flowers away. The two families only fought for the next few years to come. Gabe wanted Tina's estate, which was only worth like $3,000 in insurance money, but Tina had never changed the beneficiary on her insurance policy, making her dad the beneficiary and the one who gets paid out. Her insurance policy was $30,000. Gabe would argue that he took on, Tina's debt. They had bought a house and he put down her half of the down payment, and he had already paid $12,000 of her debt, and they went on this $10,000 honeymoon and also spent $5,000 on her funeral. But if I may say so myself, I think that's kind of part of the territory when you get married. Is it a lot of money to pile up all at once? Yes, but that's what you do when you're married. You're strong when they're weak, and, vice versa. So I don't know about, I can understand where he's upset, but that's kind of part of the territory. A lot of people would argue that Gabe was after Tina's money. There's some people that do wild things for a couple bucks, but Gabe was well-to-do for himself. So I think him trying to get Tina's estate was more of a principal act and not a financial gain. Tina's father fought and fought to have Gabe prosecuted for Tina's death because he didn't think this was accidental. He felt Gabe deliberately killed Tina on that diving trip. A year later, a reenactment of the incident was performed, and FBI agents, alongside some local officers, had searched Gabe and Tina's house. Now, by this point, Gabe has already got himself a new girlfriend named Kim. But according to his mom, he is just now starting to be normal again. An investigator took on this case, and they had asked witness after witness and expert after expert to figure out if this case was truly an accidental drowning or a murder. Fellow divers that were there that day saw Tina and Gabe next to one another underneath the water down there by the anchor line. Tina was throwing her arms and legs around, and Gabe was grabbing her under the armpits, almost like he was lifting her. And then one diver said that he noticed, and hoped that someone who was closer to them would be able to get over there and help, because she looked like she was panicking, but they were too far. Someone else was within 10 feet of them. At that point is when Gabe and Tina had split. Gabe went up top to the boat to get help, and Tina had sunk to the ocean floor. When Tina was seen sinking to the ocean floor, the dive coordinator swam down, grabbed her, and swam back up to the surface with her. Those on the boat said that they saw Gabe come flying out of the water, shouting how he needed help, though. In August of 2008, Gabe had married Kim. And not even a year later, in January 2009, Gabe boarded a flight to Australia to return for trial. Australia had basically told Gabe he had to come back to have a trial because of all of the uproar this case was bringing. So Gabe went back, and when he got there, Gabe ultimately pled guilty to involuntary manslaughter due to negligence and was sentenced to 4 years, but only served 18 months. He was originally only going to serve 12 months, but at the end of that 12 months, the Attorney General had wrote a letter to the judge in Australia and used a few choice of words, basically letting them know that Tina's life was worth more than 12 months. And that they are basically telling everyone that if you want to kill your husband or wife, you can do so, down under in Australia. After Gabe had served his sentence, he came back to the States and settled down with Kim, living, his normal life, as normal as he could make it at this point. So I must ask you this. Do you think that this was truly accidental, or do you think Gabe did it? Let me know what you guys think. I'm kind of torn. I'm curious why Gabe was not encouraging Tina to get in as many dives as she could in the time span of, them thinking that they were going to go to Australia. I don't necessarily think taking a $10,000 vacation is a last minute type of plan unless you're making more money than what you should be. But Tina and Gabe were, middle class. So I'm just curious why he was not encouraging her to get as many dives under her belt as possible, knowing they were going to go to Australia. So I'm just curious what you guys think. So you'll have to let me know. And until next time, please remember to be safe, and I will see you then. Bye.